creator of a course in emotional freedom, how to heal your emotional triggers. It's a yogic method for clearing those triggers, which are really reactive wounds within. So, Lake Harriet Spiritual Community, please help me welcome Maria Toso. Did I say torso?
Toso.
Toso.
Yes. Thank you, Ella. So for those of you that haven't been here before, the way this happens, Gary finds people that he thinks is interesting for some reason, and then he gives them a little sentence, and that's all you get. And I don't have to give him anything before I come and say, okay, this is what I'm planning. Here's my PDF presentation, PowerPoint presentation. And all he said was that the prompt is, share your light, shine your light. Am I right? I hope I got the topic right by now, the prompt. And so then it gets to just kind of sit there for a little while, and you think about what that is, you forget about it, and it comes back. And as someone who's promised to come and speak, you hope at some point that inspiration kicks in where you feel like you know what you're going to talk about. Well, I left my house this morning, I was like, I don't yet know. I don't yet know. But now I know, and it's because I took Pete and Janet's class this morning. I came early, and they were teaching laughter yoga. And they were very silly, and we're standing in a circle, and we're doing one silly gesture after another that you couldn't help but start laughing because it was so silly. And I would say that was probably the purpose. And what is it when we laugh like that? What's happening? We're like children again, right? We become fully present, and we become unself-conscious. Is that a word? Not self-conscious, not like, how do I look, how am I being perceived? All of that is out the window when you act that silly. And when we think about who we are as little children, if you watch little kids on a playground, they just run up to each other. Here am I, want to play with me? It's immediate, right? Nothing has collapsed yet. I teach yoga teacher training at Minneapolis College, and I taught all day yesterday. And we talked a lot about posture and how, same thing, when little kids run around on the playground, you know, they're perfect posture. Nobody has to tell them yet. Then we push them into little seats and tell them to stay there. And they're really meant to learn by moving like we just did, but instead we confine them and things start to collapse. And if we think about the human being as a light being incarnated, then having our light be fully alive becomes a primary, essential task, should be for us as parents and for us as adults to keep that live alight. But if we think of ourselves as these empty little buckets that we have to stuff a lot of academic knowledge into, then that becomes a primary focus. And if a kid can't sit still in a chair, well, we'll give them some medication so they can. Totally go against their instinct to move and laugh. And you want to play with me? Do you want to play with me? What should we play? I'm going to put on a crown. I'm going to put on a cape. I'm Superman. That's what we did today. Pete taught us how to be Superman around the world. And we're laughing in the face of evil. That's what little kids do. Right? It's like Star Wars. It's this archetypal light winning over darkness that is within us. But where do kids get that from? Yes, they start acting out something they might have seen on TV, but you know what? I didn't have TV growing up. When I was growing up in Denmark, TV is something that came on at 6 p.m. Until then, you know what they had when you turned the TV on at 5:50? An aquarium. Little fish were swimming. And we were so excited, we'd sit there and stare at the aquarium. And then there would be the news for the adults, and then later there would be little children's programming, like half an hour, that was it. But that's just to say that even before we get ideas from TV and cartoons and so forth, there are these archetypes that live inside little children that they want to be. Did you guys have a dress-up box growing up, or did you give your kids one? And at what point do we stop doing that? Right? It's the imagination that slowly dies the way we educate children. And if you think about it, it's all I shouldn't use that word. If you think about it, it comes from the European concept of I think, therefore I am. Who said that? Yes, I think, therefore I am. That's actually the opposite of yoga. In yoga, we say yoga chitta vritti nirodha. Yoga is the cessation of the fluctuation of the mind. Yoga is me getting to who I am when I'm not thinking. But if we think the primary thing we want to do for little children, and then high school children, and then college children, and by that time we're brainwashed into thinking this is what we need to be doing, is just fill our minds with information, and that's somehow going to make us smart. And who's filling our minds, and what are we being filled with, and what algorithm are we tied into, and are we just being programmed from something outside of ourselves? Where's the light in that? Where's that original light that every child runs around with, and therefore every one of us? Why does that slowly start to drop? What is it that happens there? For one thing, I think posture is one of the things that happen. Yeah, if a little kid has perfect posture, room for his or her lungs, and over time we collapse because we sit in chairs and we start to get focused on a video game, and suddenly we're really not in our bodies anymore, and there's a collapse. How much can I breathe into this? About half. No, really, I count people's breath when they come to my teacher training, and if you have breathed very consciously as a singer or yogi or Tai Chi practitioner for a number of years, you usually breathe about 6 breaths a minute. When people come in and they've been in that collapse and not brought a lot of awareness to it, it can be 12, 18, over 20. I taught yoga for very traumatized women for a number of years, and I would do that exercise, and many of them was above 20. Fully resting. Everything has tightened. The container is tight. And then when that starts to open up, whether we learn it deliberately or something happens that we suddenly open back up to the spirit being we are, it's like we can breathe again. What do we say to somebody who's distraught? Breathe. Why? I've said this before here, but I'll say it again. My native tongue is Danish, and the word for breathing is ånde, and that's also the word for spirit. So when you breathe deeply, you're spiriting and you're taking your spirit in. Gary just mentioned after we did the laughter yoga this morning, that was kind of like breath work. We reconnect with spirit. Last summer I watched my mom die. She was old, it was her time. Whenever she approached the threshold and then kind of pulled back a little bit, and that took days as it does, she was in hospice, she would start breathing very fast, very similar to breath work. There's something about our breath and our spirit that we lose touch with when we collapse in the body and our awareness is out there. In the old days, this time of year, even more so in Scandinavia where I'm from, it would be dark very early, and the sun wouldn't rise until like 9 o'clock. So there wasn't much to do. You can't do much by candlelight, except go to bed at 8. So there's a restoration that happens when we sleep, and when we withdraw from being in the physical world and we commune with the spiritual world. The less we sleep and the more we're always out there instead of coming inside, the less that recharging occurs. So we lose more and more and more and more touch with, dare I say it, God, the divine, the essence of who we are. And instead we fill ourselves more and more and more with what's out there. Many years ago, my kids were little, they're now adults. I was in Denmark this time of year in my mom's cabin, and we had a storm and we lost electricity. We had candles and we had a wood-burning stove. So we could actually cook on the wood-burning stove, and we could see enough because it would get dark around 3:30 in Denmark. This is what happened when there's nothing to stimulate you, and there's no electric light after 3:30, 4 o'clock, you are as tired as midnight or 1 a.m. by 8 o'clock. That whole week, it was almost a whole week we didn't have electricity. Every one of us slept over 12 hours per night. Can you imagine? We weren't even trying. We're just out. And now we have so much stimulation happening constantly that we never go to that deep, 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 deep place anymore. So what's happening to us, and how can we deliberately, laughter yoga is certainly one way, what else can we do deliberately to not have our connection to spirit, to the divine, tricked away from us? And I say tricked, that always sounds like there's someone out there doing it. Well, what is the most precious thing that I have to give you and you have to give me or each other? Time and presence, right? Right here, I'm see you, I want to know you, I want to find out who you are. Go to a playground now. How often, and I might have done it too if phones had been around when my kids were little, so this is not judging, this is just the state of affairs. You go to a playground and the adults are on their phones. There was a New York artist that put together photography of adults and children probably too on their phones, but he had photoshopped the phone out of their hands. So you just had picture after picture. It's like a zombie dead feeling, right? If you're in a room with someone you care about, you have a good connection with, and that other person is over in the armchair reading a book, they're still with you, right? It's okay that you're not talking right now. There's a feeling of togetherness. If that same person very quietly puts down the book and gets on their phone instead, you can feel it, right? It's like they're disappearing a little bit. Do you know what I mean? And the same with you. It's like there's a disappearing into the space where now you're giving the most precious thing that you have, time, presence, to TikTok. Or whatever it is online that's swallowing us. And granted, there's education to be had, and we do learn things, right? We connect with people. But where are we in charge of what we do with our presence?
Yeah.
But to what degree are we taking charge?
Depends on how far you're going to go deep with your subconscious mind.
So Jeffrey is saying it depends how far you go with your subconscious mind. So that would say, okay, there's got to be some practices that I do, and they don't have to be the same for everyone, to connect with my divine essence. Here comes Maria tying the loop around her emotional triggers again, because here's what I would say. Why do we not go into that still space where we're quietly present with ourselves, be still and know that I am? Because what do we butt into the moment we're still inside and quiet? The stuff, right? Often anxiety. Because now we've kind of been at this collapse for so long that when we tune into it, we can feel this, you could say the light of our will. In yoga, we would say it lives in our solar plexus chakra. It's the part of us that says, okay, I came in with a blueprint, with a vision, a mission. That's why I was born. I had divine power with me as I came in. And now this will of mine is going to carry something out. But if I'm collapsed and much of my present is going elsewhere, this is churning, like it kind of knows that it needs to do something, right? It needs to take action in some way, but it's been thwarted in that environment that we create inside of our own body. So how do we open that up again? I would say that we come in and really spend some quiet, curious presence time inside of ourselves. And if we don't have something with which to meet that, am I okay? I've probably fucked up by now. Ooh, that's really, that's terrible feeling of anxiety and tension and contraction in the body, then I'd rather be watching scroll. Yeah? So, but if we can trust that there's something greater that we are, even if we don't always feel it, but at least people in this room are likely to believe that there's something beyond the body that is who you truly are, that in your hour of need would come to your aid if you called upon it, so that when we become still inside and we feel that trepidation and anxiety and I'm not good enough and it's never going to happen, I don't know how to do it and I can't focus and I have ADD now, something can come in and help us here if we call upon it. Here's what I'll say as a long-term meditator, and I started meditating when I was 19, now I'm 54. That's a long time. So you'd think that I was really good at it by now, right? Kind of like an expert. I've gotten worse at it. Okay? So why is that? It's as though I have to, and I've talked to other people about this, that you have to kind of pass through a layer of static before you kind of drop into that peaceful place. And here's what else I've noticed. When I do that on my own, it's kind of like, okay, I know I got to do this. It's not fun, but I know I'll feel better if I do it. Whereas in my yoga teacher training, we do it as a group, 12, 15 people. All of a sudden now we have 15 people's presence, helping us hold a field of presence where we come fully in together. And there's something about that. Just like your friend in the corner reading a book was still present with you to some degree. And by the time the phone came in, they were kind of gone, right? So if you imagine that feeling of somebody actually being there, and then somebody else being there, and somebody else being there, and somebody else being there, and another person, and then suddenly you have a field of people being present with each other, that field of presence holds everyone. So even if someone strays a little bit, the field of presence has sort of a gravitas to it, you could say, that pulls you back in. And when I am done guiding a meditation, and I very quickly turn it over to the students so they guide, because they're learning to teach. And it doesn't matter who's teaching and guiding, but when we're at the end of a meditation, nobody wants to come out. At the end of, you kind of have to get beyond, in my experience, that 10-minute mark. Like the first 10-minute mark, you're squirming and this is hurting, you're thinking about this and you're thinking about that, and there's something you've forgotten, should I write it down? And then it's as though there's the center of your being where all is still, and then there's thoughts that start to churn up and you go spin. That's what we say too, right? You're spinning. I think we're all spinning, right? We're all out here and the thoughts just churn and they go further and further out, and it can start to feel impossible to get back in. And the attempt to get back in is like, okay, I can't do it. I may as well just be on my phone or some other entertainment. But when we manage to come into that space in the middle, in the center, the ocean of being where time slows down instead of speeding up, it's almost timeless. When we get in there, we unite with our true nature, our source. We don't really want to leave. So I will have people open up their eyes, and then it's already cooking up again. All right, can you feel that happening? And then let's close them again. We're still very close to the center. Let's come back in there. Really feel and be in the body. Now try to really be in that space and still open up and look around. You know what I think happens there? And I'd love to do a little bit of that with you guys today, even though it's just like a talk. Let's experience this a little bit. It's as though even just me talking about this now, when I look, it's like I can just see this precious, intelligent, loving, compassionate being behind the eyes. Have you ever experienced that? Where suddenly you walk down the street and you just have this, wow, every single human being is someone's child. This precious being, if something happened to them, it'd be so horrible, right? And then you go back to driving right by the homeless person on the street, and you can't be bothered to stop, and it's impossible anyway, and aren't we not supposed to give money? And right, then it's like that's no longer your child out there, because we become more into the intellect, I think, therefore I am. So then back to how we raise children who are naturally empathic and open and connected and want to play and are not judging each other. And then the way we raise them, pull them further and further away from that so they can be good citizens. If you think about it, a good citizen has to be willing and able to take advantage of someone else, right? I mean, that's what success is for the most part. We think success is to set something up where you can somehow get as many people as possible to give their presence and then pay them back in such a way that you accumulate more. Right? That is still what we think of as success, because we're still so tied into the fear of not having enough, so tied into the first chakra, insecurity. I'm not sure I'll have enough. Once I have enough, then I will be able to be empathic and altruistic. But as long as I still have that insecurity, I won't quite be able to do that. Kids aren't like that naturally, right? When they come in, Mama, try some, have some, right? That they want to share with you. And then there comes a time when it's like, whoa, I might not have enough. I'm going to start hiding this away. Somewhere in the Bible it says, be like the little children. And I feel like every time I speak about anything, whether it's in a forum like this or with friends where we really get into it, it seems like it keeps coming back to that. Be like the little children. Children who are open-hearted and who are not judging one another yet. The self-consciousness, they saw that they were naked, hasn't yet set in. There's just an open, childlike being. So how do we get there? More. We all urge and yearn to be more in that space, and yet all the things that get us there, getting out into nature, painting, playing, laughing, being goofy, all of that is what is being stripped away because we have to be serious and get things done. How can we, in our own life, start to incorporate more of the things that would bring us to that childlike state? What are the practices that help us get there? More space.
More space, you have to create that in your own where you live.
Jeffrey's saying you have to create that in the space where you live. I think we got to get the phones a little further away from us. That's one thing I'm noticing. And maybe that's more the younger generation than the older generation, but that's definitely one of them, right?
I was thinking that if society.
I can repeat too the question.
If society is doing it, it's probably the reason not to do it.
Yeah, or at the very least, question it. Question whether it's right for you. Is this really what I want to do? Does this make me feel good? Is this ultimately, I have a 22-year-old son who is 5 months sober now. And he's going through immense loneliness because that's not what 22-year-olds do when they go out. They don't not drink. So then what do you find instead? What are new ways? Why have we normalized drinking, for example? I would say that ties back yet again to I can't be with myself because I've collapsed. I don't feel the connection anymore. It's too scary to be in here, so I need distraction, whether it's phone or alcohol or sugar or whatever it is, to numb that void of if I'm cut off from all my numbing agents and the things that distract me, but I haven't yet connected to something greater about who I am and how I'm interconnected with every other human being, then it's too painful. We can't ask anybody to do that. Right? It's just too much. And with that, I would also say the shaming that we tend to each have about that thing we do to excess because we're scared of feeling what we're feeling. There's usually shame around that excess thing, right? So if we can also look at that and say that's the pacifier that the baby was given because mama didn't have time to hold you. So what if mama does have time to hold you and I'm mama? Or papa, or whoever, I'm here to say to myself, I love you, I'm here, I've got you. And when I'm saying that, I'm channeling divine love that lives within me. Before I came up here, I was chatting with Mark and Jeffrey, and we're talking about pets. We're talking about what is it pets do. And I was sharing how my son, again, that I just mentioned, when he was young, he'd come home from school in like 4th, 5th grade, and he would lay on the sofa, and I would just kind of eavesdrop. He thought he was alone, and I would hear him say, "I love you. You're such a sweet girl. I love you so much. I'm right here. I'm taking care of you." I mean, it's just that exactly that compassionate love that we must learn to cultivate for ourselves first and foremost. We're always looking for someone else to come and give that to us. But most of us are not taking the time to give that to ourselves. Let's try this. Let's close the eyes for a moment and hold the heart. So, like I told you, I'm in the middle of teaching yoga teacher training, so that's kind of my frame of reference right now. In the Yoga Sutras, it's described that inside of our heart space is Purusha. And in Sanskrit, that means little person. So it's like a mini version of us that is light-filled, eternal, infinite, divine, loving light. Always there, ready to grow more intense if we allow it to. And what is the allowance? It's presence again. Presence is the currency that brings to us whatever we give that presence to. So let's all bring presence to this divine light within. You might vision it as a little Buddha in your heart. It could be like a sun, luminous light, a lotus, whatever feels like, yes, this is who I really am. Goodness, compassion, kindness, patience, ready to help, ready to love. Now that light, because we collapse and we live more in our I think, therefore I am intellects, it's a little starved. So let's just play around and say that this light is on a dimmer and it's been turned a little low. So now we're bringing one hand to the dimmer, we're turning that dimmer up so the light is increasing in intensity. And in fact, the light is increasing so much in intensity, it's making us sit up straighter. Our hearts are getting bigger, chests are getting more open. It's starting to fill all of our limbs, our hands. We can feel this heart light in our hands. We can feel the buzzing in the palm of the hands. That is the heart light, the heart chakra pouring out of the hands. If we were to take those hands and put on another being, they would feel heart love being poured into them. The same light extends down through our legs. Our legs want to carry us toward more love, more light, more kindness, more patience. The light is also illuminating our heads, our intellects, our capacity to think that the intellect might be our servant, might be the servant of Purusha, of the heart, love, divinity within. No, I am not because I think. I am because I love. I am because I love. I am because I am love. And my intellect is going to help me figure out the best ways to bring that into the matrix. The intellect is my servant. Now raise your hands up and let them shine into this room. Heart love, radiant presence into this room, filling this room. Even the people you haven't noticed yet, that you didn't see when they came in, they're receiving this light. I'm receiving your light. You're receiving my light. We're all receiving each other's light. We are this light. We are radiant light bulbs fueled by God's electricity in every moment. And with our presence, we decide how intense that light gets to be. Can it be 100? 100-watt light bulb in our chest. 150? 500, 1,000. More? 10,000? Can you feel it buzzing like electricity in your body? There's enough in here now to share with something bigger than this room. Let's send it into the whole world. That everyone may become more present, more loving, more kind by being present in the heart space with each other, with everyone. And now bring that back to yourself again. Anywhere on the body that needs this. Maybe it's heart space, maybe there's somewhere else. Maybe that churning anxiety in the solar plexus needs some of this. What would you say from this place to yourself? I love you. I've got you. I'm right here. You're doing just fine. I'm proud of you. It's not easy out there. It's going to take some real determination to make love more important. But you've got that. I'm right here. I'm right here with you. And maybe set an intention inside yourself to not forget this space, to return to this space. Whether for you it's prayer, it's visualization, it's words, it's affirmations. God within, the divine within, love within. Give it a name that feels right for you. And recognize how powerful you are. How God is the ocean and we're all these little waves. I want to be all that I can be through the divine. I'm ready to be the vessel for that. I'm ready to meet sorrow, grief, fear, anxiety that lives in my body, to dissolve it in this love, that I may become a more and more pure light bulb for this light. I'm ready to meet that in you as well. I know you carry grief and anger and anxiety and fear and contractions and I'm not good enoughness. I'm ready to meet that in you as well. We're all just little children who grew up and started collapsing. Now let's all stand up. Stand up as tall as a little kid would. Okay? Let's get the dress-up box out. I'm going to get a crown. Get a crown or whatever you put on your head to stand up really tall. Put it on. How would you stand if you're wearing a crown? You don't have to collapse much for that crown to fall right off your head. Now also a cape. What happens to the shoulders and the heart when we wear a cape? Yeah? This is like the etheric protection of the divine around the body. We can bring it in a little bit. It's a cold day, but the heart is radiant right here. Yeah? I don't know, you can't really move in the rows there, but try to just move a little bit and see if you can walk up this, be this tall. My daughter was the tallest in her class, and I tried to teach her this because she collapsed so she could be the same height as her friends. And she said, but Mama, if I walk like this, the other kids will think I'm proud. Let's just say that I'm proud of being a human being, divine light in a body incarnated into this dark time, that I get to be a light here. Say it. Yes, try to be proud to be a human being in this light, said Krista. Yes. Collapse a little bit and see what that feels like. Can you feel the difference? Put the crown on. Put the cape on. I'm ready to be a princess or a prince of light in the world. You ready? Yes. Good. Thank you. That's what I got for you. When you leave today and go to your car, don't go out without your crown and your cape. You know, it's a little bit funny. I'm talking about dress-up box and all of that. But look at my energy centers when I take it off, and if I forget, and if I'm tired, and it collapses, right? You can see it. You can feel the presence is a little thicker in the room too, right? Yeah? Good. Okay. Sit down for a second. We'll close eyes together for 1 minute. being in the interior environment, the castle, the temple of our body. Breathing presence and love into the body. Sending breath, love, and presence, especially to any contracted area in the body. And remember the magic words, I love you and I'm here. Now feel the whole body so full of presence and light, and then open the eyes without losing that presence and light. Okay. So, are we circling now, or are we doing the thing? We're doing the thing. So I'm going to sit down here and do the thing.
Ooh, I can feel it. So everybody just take a breath. One more breath. Oh, thank you, Maria. So those were some inspirational words. And so as you said, be as little children, I was sitting there looking at that window, the stained glass window, and I heard, be ye as little children. And then you said it. So this weekend I happened to be with 10 of my 11 great-grandchildren. And they're all, the little ones that were there were from ages 14 to 8 months. And talk about being in the little space that I have and all that energy. But it was so much fun. We did a lot of silly things, a lot of fun things, and I felt like I was present, but their moms were not present. They were on the phones. So you could feel the difference in the energy when they were not present. So any reminders we can take away today is to be present with ourselves, to breathe, and to allow our light to shine. So thank you. All right, well, we got to do the thing, and the thing is asking for donations. So Lake Harriet Spiritual Community is funded. One of our sources of income is donations. So in just a moment, John will be passing the basket, and we ask that you give what you can give today. If you can't give today, consider becoming a regular donor by going to our website. There's a mechanism to do that. And if you're a regular pledger, you get, Jan is holding up, you can't see this, but Jan is holding up a little pledge card. So the pledge card can go in the basket as well. There are some Venmo cards, so give what you can give. That helps us keep the lights on, the doors open, and bringing amazing speakers like Maria here. So thank you for your donations.
I bought a cheap watch from the crazy man floating down canal. It doesn't use numbers or moving hands, it always just says now. Now you may be thinking that I was happy, but this watch is never wrong. And if I have trouble, the warranty said, breathe in, breathe out, move on. And it rained, it was nothing really new, and it blew. We've seen all that before, and it poured. The earth began to strain, watch it train leaking through the door, tides at war. If a hurricane doesn't leave you dead, it will make you strong. try to explain it, just nod your head. Breathe in, breathe out, move on. And it rained, nothing really new, and it blew. Seen all that before, and it poured. The earth began to strain. Aren't you train? Buried the ninth ward to the second floor. According to my watch, the time is now. Past is dead and gone. Don't try to shake it, just nod your head. Breathe in, breathe out, move on. Don't try to explain it, just bow your head. Breathe in, breathe out, move on.
All right, thank you for the music, Gary. All right, if you could help me bless the offering by repeating after me. God's perfect love, flowing through me, blesses and multiplies all that I give, all that I receive, and all that I am. Oh. As part of our tradition, at the end of the service, we'd like to circle up, and I think we've got enough people to circle around the middle section, and Maria will lead us in a closing.
Am I still wearing this thing? Yes.
Everybody just stretch out, stretch out. Okay, you people over there, stretch out, stretch your arms out. Yeah, there we go. Right here. That's excellent. Cool. We got enough.
Okay. So before we do a song that I have in mind, that's going to be very obvious, let's turn on the light in the heart first. Turn the dimmer up. Pour it in there. Full-on presence in the heart center. Radiant light radiating into the world like a powerful lantern shining in the darkness. All right, you're all going to chime in now, okay? This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. So I'm going to teach you something. I lived in Copenhagen 2 years ago, and I got sort of like a Copenhagen Groupon for a singing lesson. And I was the girl who was refused entry into the school choir because I couldn't sing. So that's been kind of a lifelong thing that I'm shy about singing, which is why I make myself do it. So I went, and it was this Danish woman. She was sitting behind the piano, and she said, "Well, what would you like to sing?" I was totally put on the spot. So I was like, "This little light of mine." It was all that came into my head. And she said, "Well, that's funny, because I'm a gospel choir director that you picked that." So then she had me sing, and it went okay. And then she showed me an exercise I'm going to show you guys. And when I stood up and sang after doing this little exercise, way more volume came out of my body. So much that I burst into tears. It was like too much. It was almost like I can't have a voice that big. And she had to get up from the piano and hug me. It's interesting. There's something about our voice. I think our voice is part of our light that way. Dare we speak up? Yeah? Okay, so here's the exercise. I can't really guide it as I'm doing it, so I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do, and then I'll sort of try to guide it, but I also want to do the exercise. You're going to come into a forward fold. Then you're going to take the deepest breath in you can possibly get into your body while you're down in your forward fold. You're going to stand back up without losing all that air, and then we're going to do it again, and then we're going to take down the roof, okay? Forward fold. Okay, let's breathe in deeply all the way in. Come up. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Woo! There was more volume that second time around, right? Isn't that kind of cool? It's a cool trick. All right. Very nice. Thank you. Go shine your light. Thank you so much.